everybody, my name is Red Blast and welcome back to another episode of Redstone with Red. So here we are back with another fully sized episode. You guys seem to absolutely love the previous episode. It got almost 78 views in its first day. That's if I can remember the correct video. Anyways, so we are back with another fully sized episode, but this is also going to be a shorter one because in today's episode, we're going to be comparing. We're going to be comparing if PewDiePie is better than Cocomelon. Oops, sorry. That's not the comparing we're going to be doing. Today, we're going to be looking at Minecraft comparators. Don't mind the weird intro. Anyways, comparators are a redstone component I skipped over in my first redstone component video. They're a little bit on the complicated side, but I thought since they are going to be really useful in the later days, in today's video, we're going to be taking a complete look at the comparator and how it works. Let's get into it. So comparators, what are they? Comparators are basically a redstone component that convey redstone signal over. They're almost like the repeater, you could say. As you can see here, the comparator has a bag. You can tell that by seeing the two torches at the back and the one torch at the front, which indicates the output. So if I put in an input from here, you can see it goes into this comparator from the back and the output comes out from the front. So you might say this is similar to the repeater, but this is not completely similar to the repeater. As you can see here, repeaters only have one input and one output. That's not completely true for the comparator because this may be the main or the primary input, but the comparator also has two secondary inputs which come in from the sides. Now remember this thing, we're going to be coming back to this in a little bit because we're going to be talking about this stuff in a little bit in the future. Moving on to the next feature, comparators are good for builds in survival mode. So if you catch yourself a couple of weeks ago, you would remember that I made a video called 5 redstone contraptions that would improve your gameplay in game. I will link that video on the card right on screen now. In that video, I made a lot of contraptions and almost all of them contain at least one comparator. Now, why is that? You see, comparator has this interesting feat that they can detect items from a chest. So, as you can see here, this chest is completely empty and there's no redstone signal coming out of this comparator. But as I put in, let's say, one item for now, that comparator will detect that and give off a signal strength of 1. Now this is based upon how many items you put in. So let's say I put in 2 stacks. That gives off a signal strength of 2. So basically, the less you have items in this chest, the less you're going to get signals. And the more you have, the more you're going to get. Now you see there is an exact equation that goes into this while selecting how many redstone dust is going to get lit up. But I'm not that smart. Now there is the exact formula for this in the Minecraft wiki. I'm not going to be linking that in the description just because I can't find it. But if you want to know this more deeply, you can go to the Minecraft wiki and check if you want. But what I can provide you with is the containers that the comparator can actually check the items from. So if you can see here, all of these containers are which the comparator can take a signal strength from if they are in the selected mode the comparator needs to give a signal. So here we have a cake which can be detected on which state it is in based upon how much you have ate. For example, if I eat a little bit, it will go down, and basically if I eat it all the way, it will go away, but I'm not going to do that. Next up, we have ourselves the jukebox. If you play a, music disc in this, the comparator will detect that and give off a signal strength based upon that. These chests, trap chest, hoppers, sorry, not hoppers. Hoppers are also one of them. I did talk about them in the video that you just saw on the card. Again, if you want to check that out, go ahead. Hoppers, dropper, dispenser, barrel, circle box, all work in the same fashion. The cauldron is a little bit of an interesting one. We're probably going to be using this later on in the series, but the cauldron can have water inside of them in varying levels. So that can give off a variable signal strength based upon how much water you have in it. I did talk about item frames in the first one based upon which state it's in. You can rotate it and the comparator will give off a signal strength based upon that. I guess the in-portal frame rather gives off a signal strength if there's a I in it or not, and the composter is basically the same as comparators. So I hope you I hope you understood what all of this means. If you didn't, you just can go back and see if you did or did not. Man, I'm not making any sense. Just pause if you need to. Let's move on to the next one. Really hope all of that made sense. I really got confusing at the end. But anyways, I actually forgot to mention, if you want to check out any specific feature for the comparator, the timestamps are going to be in the description for your convenience. Anyways, the next couple of features I did mention in my previous episodes, so if you haven't checked that out already, I would put a link in the description for you to check that out. But I'm still going to mention them because this is the comparator video and every single comparator feature needs to be here. So let's just get straight into it. So if you power a comparator from, I guess, the input slot and put a block on the output slot, this block is being hardly powered. Now, to understand this hardly power, what it means, just check out the video down in the description. But basically, it powers a redstone dust, all the redstone dust actually around it. So yeah, that's really useful. Another thing that's actually quite interesting about this comparator is that, so let's say you put in a certain amount of signal strength into this comparator. Let's say in this case, this is 12 going into this comparator. This comparator will actually take that signal and repeat it. So meaning that a signal strength of 12 is going into this comparator, and a signal strength of 12 is going to be coming out of this comparator. This is really, really useful for certain builds where you need a certain amount of signal strength going into a certain redstone contraption. So for that, definitely use a redstone comparator. This signal strength conveying is actually modular, meaning that if you put more comparators, the same signal strength will be distributed along the line. So for example, a signal strength of 12 is going into all of these comparators, and this comparator will also give out a signal strength of 12. I really hope that also made sense. I'm really getting into a little bit fast zoned. But anyways, moving on into the next feature, we have ourselves the different modes of a comparator. So the features I showed you before are all features of a comparator in its normal mode, meaning that the little torch at the front is actually turned off. But the other mode of the comparator you actually saw a glimpse of earlier when I was setting up that example over there, is when you right click a comparator, it goes into its subtract mode. Now, to understand these modes better, we actually have to go back to our first example over here so that you can understand them better. So let's start off with the normal mode of the comparator, shall we? So here you can see a lever is powering this redstone dust. It is going into this comparator with a signal strength of 13. Likewise, the same thing is happening over here, where this lever is powering this redstone dust, but a signal strength of 12 is going into this comparator, meaning that this signal strength is higher than this signal strength, and see what happens. We get ourselves a redstone output. Great. Now, if let's say this signal strength is equal to this signal strength over here, meaning that both of them are 13 going into this comparator, and as you can see here, we still get ourselves an output. But let's say the secondary one is higher than the signal strength going in from the front. Then see what happens. We don't get ourselves an output. So what does that all mean? That all means that if the main input for a comparator is higher, or I guess higher or equal to the signal strength going in from the side, you'll get yourself an output just like that. But if the input going in from the side is higher than the input going in from the front or the main input, then you will not get yourself an output. Now this is really, really useful in some situations, but personally I haven't used this yet in any kinds of redstone contraption, but hopefully I can find a use for this as the series goes along. By the way, this is a little bit awkward, but I was doing some speed runs. I recorded this clip once already, but well, when I do speed runs, you see I turn off my mic. So this is the second time recording, and in the next clip, I will start off by saying that I had a timer on the screen, which didn't. Just bear with me. Anyways, moving into subtract mode. Please don't question why I had my timer on in the last clip. Yep, just don't. But if you really want to know, that was because I was doing some speedruns and a little bit of a spoiler into the future. Maybe I found a great seat to speedrun on. So keep an eye out for that. Anyways, moving back to comparators and Redstone. Okay, give me a second. Okay, now I have everything set up. Okay, so you understood how normal board double input works, right? So now we're gonna get into how subtract mode double input works. So here we have this basically the same setup. We have ourselves the primary input with a signal strength of 13 going to the subtract mode comparator, and on here we'll have the same thing, a lever in going in from the side in with a signal strength of 12. Now, what do you think will happen? Now, it might be a little bit more obvious one because the name has subtract in this name, and as you might expect, this comparator takes the signal from this input and it subtracts, or I guess minuses or removes, however you want to put it, and gives off a signal strength based upon that. So here we have ourselves a signal strength of 13 going to this comparator, and here we have a signal strength of 12 going to this comparator. 13 minus 12 is 1. Quick maths for you. I'm a genius. Anyways, and that's giving off signal strength of 1. Just for another example, let's say I have a signal strength of that. I didn't count that far. And something. Okay, give me a second. Here's another fun fact for you. I don't know absolutely everything about Redstone. You see, here I was thinking that both of the input worked as the greater one, but nope. If you want to have a output in subtract mode, the bigger one has to be the primary one. So here, a 13, you have a 12, we get a 1. But if this, first say that one is the bigger one, we don't get an output, which I didn't know. Fun things to know while you record, right? But yes, so that's another fact. Keep that in mind. But with that being said, that wraps up basically everything about how a comparator works. I hope you really learned something new about the comparator in this episode, and I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down in the comments if you found anything complicated, because it might seem a little bit complicated, but honestly, there isn't too much to the comparator, so I really think you should be fine. But with that being said, guys, that was it for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more episodes of this series or videos from me in general, make sure you hit the subscribe button with notifications turned on. But that's going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.